If the government allowed people to pay taxes with bread, what would be the most popular tax evasion methods? The biggest difference between bread and money is standardized. $1 is $1, while bread varies greatly. When the government accepts bread as tax payment, it must determine how much tax each loaf is worth, which creates enormous room for manipulation. The most direct method of tax evasion is exaggerating the value of bread. An ordinary loaf might only be worth 5 yuans, but taxpayers would likely try every possible method to make this bread worth $50, thereby paying more taxes. For example, invaluable rare yeast, artistic bread from the cycle and eternity of life. Of course, besides exaggeration, there is also falsification and deception. Bakers would produce large, aesthetically pleasing bread that is actually hollow inside or filled with cheap fillers, or exploit bread's short shelf life by providing bread that is near or past its expiration date for tax payment. Certainly, these methods aren't safe enough. There are safer ones. That is substituting premium ingredients with low-cost alternatives. Regular flour plus a small amount of whole wheat flour equals whole wheat flour. Artificial honey flavoring equals natural honey. Large amounts of cheap breadcrumbs as fillers to increase weight. Although the taste is slightly worse, the cost is significantly reduced. And most importantly, the bread looks almost identical to normal products. When tax departments come to assess the bread's value, they're given the A-grade goods. Standard formula, carefully crafted, premium quality. After obtaining the assessment certificate, they switch to B-grade goods, cutting corners, reducing quality. Besides this, from raw materials to finished products, the bread industry involves multiple stages and participants. The complex supply chain provides fertile ground for large-scale tax evasion and avoidance. Bread factories and tax bread would emerge in large numbers. Some would establish factories specifically for producing tax payment bread. These factories' sole purpose would be producing bread that appears compliant but costs extremely little to make. The factory would reduce production costs to $2 and sell it to businesses for $8. Businesses would then use the purchased bread to offset $10 in taxes. Businesses save $2. Factories earn $6. Both parties collectively earn $8 from the government. Fictitious supply chains would emerge. Some would establish 3 companies in succession. Company A material supply, Company B bread production, and Company C bread sales. In actual operation, Company A sells wheat and other materials to Company B at prices 10 times higher than market value. Company A shows enormous profits on paper. Company B produces bread using these expensive ingredients, claiming each loaf costs up to $50. Company C purchases these loaves at $100 each, claiming this is because top-tier ingredients were used. Company C uses these $100 value loaves to pay taxes. Due to the involvement of multi-level subsidiaries and complex accounting, this bread tax washing method makes it difficult for tax authorities to track real costs. As is well known, economic transactions originate from demand. Major bread producers might unite to collectively influence the government to establish bread standards favorable for tax evasion. A bread industry association would be born. This association would become the primary consulting body for government bread tax standard setting. Under the association's recommendations, the government would adopt a set of evaluation standards favorable to producers. 1. Emphasize volume and color, as these are easy to fake. 2. Downplay quality indicators that are difficult to fake but costly, like specific protein content. 3. Define certain characteristics easily obtainable by producers as high-value indicators. This set of standards would allow producers to easily make bread that meets high-value standards but actually costs little. Since this is the industry standard, tax departments would find it difficult to question its reasonability. The price of wheat, bread's primary ingredient, would be affected by seasonal and regional fluctuations. This would create possibilities for large-scale arbitrage in the market. If a certain group had bread factories throughout the country, they could potentially, during wheat harvest season, purchase large quantities of low-priced wheat, and produce large amounts of bread in the lowest price regions and freeze it for storage. Then during seasons when wheat prices are high, use these stored low-cost loaves to pay taxes in high-price regions. For profit, capital might even deliberately create wheat shortages in certain regions, driving up bread prices there, then transport bread from low-price regions to pay taxes there. Since there are those who evade taxes by manipulating the bread itself, there would also be those who evade taxes by manipulating the regulatory system. Under the new bread tax system, multiple government departments might simultaneously have regulatory authority. Tax Bureau responsible for collecting taxes, Food Safety Agency responsible for quality, Market Regulation Bureau responsible for pricing, Agricultural Department overseeing raw materials. Because each department is only responsible for its small portion of duties. Therefore, by providing different departments with different information that appears compliant but is actually contradictory, one could successfully evade taxes through regulatory gaps. When tax officials question the value of their bread, they would present the Food Safety Agency's high-quality certification. When the Food Safety Agency checks the formula, they would present the Agricultural Department's Premium Ingredients certification. And when the Market Regulation Bureau questions the price, they would provide records accepted by the Tax Bureau. The truth is, people are lazy by nature. If you prepared thousands of pages of documentation for each batch of tax payment bread, including but not limited to detailed ingredient source certifications, production process records, quality inspection reports, market research data, cost calculation sheets, expert evaluations, etc., using technical terminology and complex calculation methods to blend truth with falsehood, then submit these documents at the last moment. Tax officials might, due to the high cost of thorough investigation, choose to let pass your bread. Of course, smarter enterprises might artificially create bread market bubbles, using price fluctuations for large-scale tax evasion. A certain consortium would control multiple bread companies, media companies, and marketing agencies. They would launch a nationwide healthy bread trend through carefully designed marketing campaigns, portraying a specific bread recipe as a superfood. Meanwhile, they would limit the production of this bread, creating a sense of scarcity. In the short term, the market price of this bread would be inflated to 10 times its normal price. Consortium enterprises would mass-produce this bread actual cost not significantly increased, and use it to pay enormous tax bills. By the time the bubble burst and bread prices returned to normal, the consortium would have already completed their tax payments and saved massive amounts of money. Of course, if the market is crazy enough, within its shelf life, scarce bread would be hyped up by the market. With prices climbing higher and higher, everyone knows the bread isn't worth that much money, but everyone believes there will be a greater fool, who will accept the ridiculous high price. Because this greater fool also believes, there will be yet another greater fool to accept their even more ridiculous price. Then, on the day when the bread's shelf life ends, the bubble would burst with a bang. As time evolves, to combat the various tax evasion methods of the people, regulation would increase year by year. The comprehensive costs of bread receiving, storage, testing, and processing would approach tax revenue. Industry structure would become distorted long-term. The market would substantially inflate bread prices. Under the influence of various natural yeast, artistic bread, and fashion trends, bread prices would be artificially high, forming bubbles year after year. Finally, one day, the market would awaken. After realizing bread prices have severely disconnected from actual value, prices would suddenly plummet. Large-scale bread tax fraud cases would be exposed. The waste of bread resources would draw social attention. Then, under multiple pressures, bread tax would exit the stage of history.